Okay, so what I want to show you is a little bit about this DSLR camera. First of all, you can see it from the top view, but as I show it to you in this manner, this is what your camera looks like from the front. If you guys are looking at, this is your lens right at the front, and some of you realize in order to focus, you actually twist that lens in various directions, depending on what mode your camera's in, all right? Now, as we look on here, it gives you information, okay? It gives you a millimeter. This is an 18 to 55 millimeter, and it will also give you some measurements for apertures that are really important to the functions of what that lens can do for you, okay? So this happens to be what I would call an 18 to 55 millimeter lens, all right? Now when I turn the camera on its side, you're gonna see that as I move this, the lens will move outward or backwards and making it shorter or longer. Again, depending on what I'm trying to focus on and how far away it is from me. If you notice you're doing this and you can't get the item in focus, you need to move you as long as it's safe. So if I'm right here and I've got this marker and I want to take this amazing photograph of the marker, there's no way that I can get this close to the marker and take an amazing photograph that's crisp and in focus. So I may need to move this camera back 2, 3, 4 feet in order to get that in range for a nice crisp focus, okay? So a lot has to do with the capabilities of the focal distance on the lens. I'm sorry, this one's an 18 to 55, like I said. You will find straight 50 millimeter lenses on some of the cameras. You will find longer zoom lenses. The camera's a little bit heavier because the lens itself is a little bit longer, a little bit bulkier, and I'll show you some of those, okay? So basically, that's what you need to know about that lens. On the camera itself, in various places, and this one happens to have it right here, you have AF and MF. MF not referring to a bad set of words, but MF referring to manual focus, and AF referring to autofocus. You guys are aiming obviously for manual focus. You want to figure out what your image is focusing on, and you want to take a beautiful picture of that. So you have it on MF, you see that mark is right below MF, and then as you're looking through that viewfinder, you're focusing that camera to make a beautiful subject, okay? So with that, I'm going to look at the back and then show you right here. This is your viewfinder. Very seldom will you ever see me use the screen for taking pictures. When you use the LCD screen to take pictures, your camera actually slows down quite a bit, and you're more likely to actually miss that beautiful shot that you want. So instead, I put my eyeball right up to here. I look through here for the picture, I focus it, I take a beautiful picture, and it's captured much quicker. It's also much more professional. This really does narrow it down. When might I use this? If there's a weird, awkward angle that I can't get my eyeball to the camera, like if I'm shooting down at something and I can't get above it, like safely on a ladder or whatnot, I'll actually use that, tilt it, and then have it show there, okay? So when we look at the top of the camera, you really need to pay attention to a couple of things. First of all, when you first get started, let me kind of zoom in a little bit on that. You focus. Sorry. Ooh, I think that's the best I'm going to get. There we go. Okay, so you've got your on-off switch, and you always want to make sure to turn it off every day or it drains your battery. The next day, you're the one accountable for it. So if you don't have a battery to shoot with, that's obviously going to be an issue for you not getting an assignment done. So you turn it on when you need it, off when you're done for the day. You also have a dial right here, and this dial will give you a variety of camera modes to work with, okay? So you'll see there's usually one that's pretty stand out. This one, it says an A with a little plus sign. That's an automatic mode, okay? That I could have any trained little poodle somewhere take the camera, press the shutter release, and take a picture. I want to get you beyond that. I want to get you learning some of these other things on here. Now, there are some preset modes on here. Again, I'd like you to get away from using those as your first line of defense. So instead, I want you to be over here, okay? So you have a fully manual mode, that's M. You're adjusting your aperture, and your shutter speed, which we're going to talk about shortly with the M. AV is aperture priority. That says, hey, you camera, I'm going to set an aperture. You set a shutter speed to give me a nice image, okay? Now, aperture is the size of the lens opening. So when I look at the lens, please never take your lens off. I want you to make sure that your lens always stays on your camera. The lens is one of the most expensive parts of your camera. On the inside, sorry, I know it's upside down, but it functions the same way. On the inside, you're actually going to see a mirror that, let me go ahead and turn this on. When I press the shutter, perhaps you could actually see, let me put it on shutter priority. I'm going to slow down my shutter so you can see that oh, I don't want to go 25 seconds. We'll go 2-second shutter, which is a very long shutter. I want you to watch right inside here at that rectangle. Hopefully you can see that there's a little mirror inside of there. So it closes, and then it's back open. That is your shutter. That says, hey light, come on in, and then it says, stop the light. So again, that was a really long shutter, but that was just to show you what it does on the inside. Now, inside of your lens, you're going to have an aperture, and an aperture is very much like the pupil in your eye, or the black part of your eye. When you have a lot of light coming in, your pupil gets very small because so much light is coming in. Your eyes do not need that much. When you're in dark, that pupil opens up. It allows more light in. It also changes how you focus on things when your pupil is larger or smaller. The same with the aperture. So those two things together, aperture and shutter speed, are like the pupil on your eye, that black part moving, and your eye blinking. When there's too much light, you're like, whoa, whoa, your eyes are starting to blink, your pupils are getting very small, and it restricts the lighting. Very good question. Question was, so how does it change the picture? It changes the picture because that actually affects something called your exposure. So when you've got a well-exposed image, you're going to see a picture of something that actually looks really nice. It's just a nice picture. If it's very poorly exposed, you're going to have something that looks very dark and muddy or very faint, like you barely caught any light on that particular image. So when I put this back on, oh, would help if I put it the right direction. There we go. I'm going to put this back on. Now, if I have a very long shutter speed and I go ahead and take that image, let me make it a little bit longer because it's dark in here. This happened to be a 6-second shutter. Very seldom will you actually use something that will be that long. Right? Sorry. Trying to make sure I've got a good picture to show you. Okay. So as I look at this, first of all, you can see in a second when I press on your camera, there will be a play button. That's how you're going to review your images. So you're going to go ahead and press play, and you're going to look at that image. First of all, you can see that the lighting in here is actually pretty poor. I've captured quite a bit of light because I had a longer shutter. Now, when I shorten the shutter, I'm going to take the same picture I'm going to show you, but you can see that right here, like it's really blurry and it looks like there was movement in here. The shutter was just too long for a handheld piece. Does that make sense? So this would be a poor photograph. But if I go back and I make my shutter, let me turn it off play. If I make my shutter shorter, like a normal shutter speed for handheld will be a 60 or greater. So 160 means 1/60th of a second. Shooting anything under that, like 150, 40, 30 and less, usually means that you're going to get some blur when you take your picture. Obviously you don't want blur, so you have to worry about using a tripod. So when I go ahead at 1/60th of a second and I take that same picture, I want to show you what that picture looks like now. Hopefully you can see it. Let me try to I'm getting a little glare on the screen. Let's see. Do we see how much darker that is? Another poorly exposed image. So by changing it out, I can balance that, all right? So that is all about shutter and aperture working together like the pupil on your eye and your eyelid, okay? So when we're taking our pictures, just to give you a little bit of background with that, you're going to focus your image with your lens. You're going to select on this first one, TV, which is shutter priority. And you're going to adjust your shutter by using this little dial right here. This dial will change the numbers on your shutter. You will have kind of a time period that you're going to just mess around with it to hopefully understand, but I'm going to ask you to digest that information. I'm going to ask you to say, okay, if I put it on 2, it looks like 2 inches or 2 with a quotation mark, what does that mean? Oh, that's 2 seconds. That's a shorthand for seconds. When I do that, my picture looks like this. But when I do this, my picture looks like this. I want you to notice those things as you're working, because starting to understand what that does makes a huge difference in how you're going to understand shutter speed, okay? So again, you're going to use this dial right here. Hopefully you can see that. I'm pointing at it with my finger. You're going to use this dial to move your shutter speed. Right up in the front is your, it's basically your trigger to take the picture, okay? You're going to go ahead and press down. You're going to hear that noticeable click, and that click is going to tell you how long your shutter speed is well. Because if I slow down that shutter, you can hear it open and close. It's not simultaneous. Click, click. It's click, click. Okay? So you want to really pay attention to that. Now when I look at my LCD screen, here's my LCD screen. You're going to find, if you're wondering where the heck on my screen will this information show up, your camera might be slightly different than this one. Again, they're all the same brand, Canon, but there might be a few different models out there. But right here you can see TV mode. Let's see if I can tilt that. No, we're getting a lot of glare from this window. All right, so just so you are aware, let's point with this. Right here, it says TV. Here it says 1 quotation mark 6. That means 1 second, 0.6. So 1.6 seconds. And again, when I use that dial, you're going to see I'm going to change that number. If you keep going higher, those are going to be longer exposures. If I move it in the right-hand side, you're going to see that as soon as I see the 1 over something, I'm back in fractions of a second territory, where most of your pictures are going to be taken at 160 in, I would say, like an indoor setting without a ton of light. You're also going to take a lot outdoors on a super, super sunny, well, kind of a medium sunny day. You might be at 1/125th of a second. That sounds like this. Or something higher. When you notice that that picture just is way too bright and washed out, I may be moving up higher. Let's say I want to take a sports action photograph. I may be moving up all the way into this super fast time period to freeze someone up catching something, etc. Okay? So with that, you're going to have some time to look at the cameras, to mess around with them a little bit in obviously a healthy manner. But I want to showcase one more thing, and that is proper camera etiquette. First of all, I did mention, oops, sorry, making it more blurry. There we go. I did mention that you guys need to make sure that you turn your cameras on and off every day. But I also want to mention that you should make sure to always use the neck strap. You are responsible for your camera, so if you notice something is not acting proper, please make sure that you ask me. Neck strap should be worn. I don't care what you think about that. I want to make sure that you guys do have that neck strap worn. That will ensure that if you have slippery hands and it falls out of your hands, that it's just going to fall as low as your stomach. Hopefully not crashing to the ground. Don't forget, there are very specific ways that you can treat this camera before there's trouble. We obviously do not want you to get in trouble for for poor usage of a camera. So you definitely want to make sure that you're taking care of it, always wearing the neck strap. When it comes time to hand it to someone, if you can possibly hand it to them by putting it on the table, then they take it, lift up the neck strap and put it on. That's always going to be recommended. If you're outside, again, triple check that person has that neck strap on or has hold of the camera before you let go of it. All right? We do not have our, well, you know, I'm going to stop this video real quick and I'm going to talk about cameras and how you're going to get them.